What's the deepest online rabbit hole you've ever gone down? Before we start, comment at what time you're watching this video right now. Alright, on to the stories. 1. There was a paperboy who got kidnapped on a route next to mine back in the mid-80s. I've spent a ton of time reading about his case, so much that I've commented about it on Reddit and ended up getting contacted by people who wanted to interview me. 2. Deaths on Mount Everest. It started with me clicking a random article out of curiosity. Then suddenly, I was watching every documentary and reading everything I could find. It's horrifying. 3. I came across a Twitter post from someone looking for info on the author of an abandoned book. It had to do with a small town in Ireland, so I tried to find a local news site to reach out to. I got sidetracked by their obituary section and found one with a live stream link that was about to begin. That's how I ended up watching a random Irish grandma's funeral for an hour. 4. I don't remember how I found it, but I got hooked on those snake egg hatching videos from Snake Discovery, and that dragged me into the whole world of reptile keeping. I had never even touched a snake before. Now I've been working a part-time reptile presentation job at the zoo for 5 years. Because of it, LOL. 5. I was on the edge of a religious breakdown, spending hours and hours every single day for weeks, trying to figure out if God is real and if I'm going to hell. 6. I found a post on an odd job site where someone wanted people to submit fake answers to a survey. I followed a few clues and figured out the survey was about changing zoning laws for a park, and the one pushing for the changes was a development company. I emailed the surveyor and the group trying to stop the park from getting destroyed. Pretty fucked up. 7. I once spent hours falling into the world of unsolved mysteries and conspiracy theories. It started with one video, and suddenly I was deep into urban legends and supposed secret societies. 8. I once spent 3 days reading about abandoned Disney projects. Stuff like the full history of Discovery Island and River Country. By the end of it, I felt like some leftover worker from 1979. 9. There's a beach in my city where people keep going missing and never being found, and nobody can agree on what's happening to them. I went down a whole rabbit hole reading about every single person who disappeared there. 10. When I was about 17, I found this website where you could either listen to someone's problems or talk about your own. I decided to try being the listener. It was late on a school night and I had an exam the next morning, but instead of sleeping, I stayed up until 2 a.m. trying to talk a young kid out of offing themselves. It was intense, and there were moments where it felt like things could go either way, and the weight of that responsibility was huge. Things ended up turning out okay, and when we ended the chat on a good note, the relief was massive. Since then, I have so much more respect for anyone who's ever worked at a self-side hotline. If you're still watching, means you're enjoying the stories. Subscribe so you can look forward to more stories like these. Now on to 11. I spent about 2 weeks straight just learning everything I could about cephalopods. They're like freaky little aliens with superpowers that feel unsettling. Reply. They really are amazing. Especially octopuses. The fact that they're so insanely smart, with things like hunting tactics and using tools, even though they only live around 2 years on average, is just unbelievable. They learn these things, they aren't born with them. I'm sure they have kinds of intelligence humans can't even understand, because we don't have anything like it. I think whales are the same way. 12. The untouched tribes rabbit hole is insane. Everyone knows about the Sentinelese, but then you start reading about the Iorio in Paraguay, the Kawahiva in Brazil, or the Korowai in Papua. What blows my mind is how many tribes we only know exist because of satellite photos or random sightings. There are still people living completely outside the modern world. 13. I was in a Facebook group about retro video games and someone made a post that fit the group but also talked about someone who had offed themselves. I clicked on their Facebook page and ended up spending 3 hours reading about the life and death of a total stranger on the opposite side of the country. I ended up crying. Reply. I did that once too. The person who died was a friend of someone I went to high school with, who I had talked to maybe one time. She was 19, and a fentanyl overdose put her into a coma for weeks. Her mom made a GoFundMe to get her flown across the country to another hospital. I followed the fundraising and all the updates her mom posted for weeks. Then she died during the flight. I still think about her a lot. 14. I went deep into reading stories about people claiming they had past lives. That's why I know it's totally wrong when someone says you can tell people are lying about past lives because everyone claims they were rich or famous. No one says they were a poor farmer. Because I read a ton of them, and almost all were about lives nobody would want. 15. I fell into this strange collection of stories about creepy staircases in the woods that you're never supposed to touch or climb. plus weird sightings and strange wilderness deaths. It was fascinating. I haven't come across it again in ages. 16. A young woman on Reddit said she was going to off herself. Using her post history, I figured out her city, where she worked, called, and talked to someone who knew her in real life, and they gave me her boyfriend's name. I found his number. He had just broken up with her, but still cared, so he went over and stopped her. I was awake all night. 17. One time I spent 6 hours researching how people accidentally get pulled into cults, and by the end I was like, yeah, I can totally see how it happens. Reply. At the very beginning of COVID, I got wrapped up in watching stuff from the Love Has Won cult. I was never going to join or anything, I just watched their live streams trying to understand their mindset. Then one morning I turned on the news and found out they had mummified their leader. That was something. 18. A woman once shared an Uber with me, we talked a bit, and when she got out she told me her first name and where she worked and said, "Come find me." Looking her up felt like straight up stalking, since she barely had any online presence. I found out why pretty fast. She was a Columbine survivor. Her name was in the Shooter's Journal. I even found a cached version of a deleted Tumblr blog that tracked all the girls mentioned in that journal. If they were married, how many kids they had, where they lived. It was honestly some of the creepiest shit I've ever seen about real people. The worst part is I could never tell her I knew all that. 19. I opened YouTube just to check one recipe. 4 hours later, I was watching some guy build a pool in the jungle using a stick. 20. I have ADHD. There isn't a single rabbit hole I haven't fallen into, and I remember literally none of them. 21. About 8 years ago, I read about how Chinese immigrants started and changed the way Americans ate during the building of the first transcontinental railroad. These places were basically the first fast food spots. It turned into such a big interest for me that I've almost perfected the techniques, cookware, and ingredients used to make the most popular Chinese takeout dishes. 22. I once ended up putting together the entire lore of Doctor Who because of a Tumblr post of 10th and Rose fan art. Comment. Like? The entire lore? Even going back to 1963? Reply. Surprisingly, yes. I did not only use Tumblr, obviously. I did a ton of Googling too, but I only started being a Doctor Who fan in the middle of 10's run, so I honestly thought 10 was the only Doctor there ever was. I even remember thinking Doctor Who was some small indie-type show. I was such an idiot. 23. Astral projection had a hold on me for a while. 24. Godzilla. The history, the philosophy, the production process, the scripts, the actors, everything. I've been in this hole basically my whole life, and I don't see myself coming out anytime soon. The only movies and shows I haven't seen are the ones that were never made, but I found the unfinished scripts online and read those too. When you know about Godzilla vs. Satan, you're deep in this hole for real. 25. I wanted to learn about automobile suspension. Next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. and I'm an expert on suspension geometry, spring rates, spindles, valving, dampening, COI levers, control arms, camber plates, toe, and everything else. It was an insanely interesting rabbit hole. 26. I found a random couple's Flickr and went through it from the beginning in the mid-00s all the way to the present day because they lived near me and had nostalgic photos of stuff I never thought to take pictures of. 27. Psychoanalyzing my whole personality when I discovered what a Myers-Briggs is, LMAO. 28. I was giving a speech at work and sat down on a chair that collapsed. It embarrassed the hell out of me. I spent the next month online researching the company that made the chair so I could tell them about their faulty chairs. Long story short, it completely took over my life. 29. The Wikipedia page on donkey buggery is insanely detailed, with accounts going all the way back to 1500 BC. 30. A girl I went to high school with was going through a mental health crisis or drug-induced psychosis. She would livestream for hours, and the stuff she said and did was insane. I watched everything in shock and got super invested. It went on for months, then she would vanish and come back again. It's been quiet for about a year now, and I wonder how she's doing. I even looked her up and found some court records. I hope she's getting better. 31. K-pop sasangs. Holy crap, people who get super obsessed with idols are absolutely insane and basically like a cult. The amount of stuff I found made me feel like I somehow landed on the dark web, and I have never even been on the dark web. There are a lot of adult sasangs, but tons of them are kids too. It's a terrifying rabbit hole. 32. Feral children. It's crazy how much of our abilities have to be learned from other people in such a short window of time. Especially how having language affects our ability to think like humans. 33. Stories from a bunch of nurses and home visitors who work in the Appalachian Mountains and all the weird shit they see on remote properties hours away from civilization. 34. Dissociative identity disorder. I followed this girl who claimed she had it, and I was amazed by how the human mind could protect someone from childhood trauma. Turns out she was faking it. I guess it was too good to be true that kids could imagine an entire community when they don't have that in their real lives. 35. Quantum mechanics and physics. The way it moves in different fields or webs. How movement in a field is what makes us call something a particle or a wave. How light basically laughs at time and is pure kinetic energy, so it has no resting mass. My brain is melting from all this new information because I'm too stubborn to learn math, and now I'm stuck like, I cannot go further without understanding math, and my brain is melting again. Like, what even determines the fields? Like what? Now, black holes are on my list of things that make my stomach flip. The list has no logic to it. If you're curious, my list is sea stars, jellyfish, long worms chilling at the bottom of the ocean, gooey ducks, some species of mushrooms, and otters. So black holes are the newest one added to the list. 36. Astral projection had me completely hooked for a while. 37. My Wikipedia rabbit holes get ridiculous. I sit down after dinner to check how old Harrison Ford is again, and by 3 a.m. I somehow know everything about the national economy of Vanuatu. 38. Definitely the Denver airport. There is so much wild conspiracy stuff about how it was built, but when I first learned about it, the internet was still pretty new, and it wasn't something everyone knew. Those early websites were some of the most unhinged things I've ever read. 39. Ancient alien theories. Reply. That one goes deep. I read all the 12th Planet books when I was in college. 40. Back when the internet was pretty new, I spent a whole day reading about ancient civilizations on Mars. I found some interesting sites, most of them linked back to Richard C. Hoagland. 41. I started watching a video on how to fix a light switch. 2 hours later, I was learning how to survive a bear attack using only duct tape and hope. 42. When I was around 14 or 15, I was really into watching paranormal videos and browsing ghost websites. It was like my last little phase of believing magic might actually exist. I'd watch hours of footage and fall for the analysis, saying that because of some pixels, it couldn't possibly be faked. It's a real ghost. Then I'd start wondering, if ghosts are real, what exactly are they? Actual spirits that walk around after we die? Moments captured in time? People slipping in from other dimensions or timelines? I grew out of it after I started exploring abandoned hospitals and places once I could drive. I also realized that if a real ghost had ever been filmed, everyone would know about it by now, and with today's cameras everywhere, there would be solid proof by this point. I still enjoy ghost tours and checking out haunted, abandoned spots. I like the atmosphere, even though I know I'll never actually see a ghost. 43. I got my first computer in 1998. I liked old movies. I randomly looked up Gone with the Wind, found IMDb, found the message boards. I posted in the sandbox. A guy named Biohazard replied. We chatted. We ended up liking each other. I flew from California to Sydney to meet him. He moved to California. We got married. We had a baby boy. That baby boy is turning 24 next week. 44. The Nutty Putty Cave incident grabbed me completely, and it led to weeks of reading about caving and stories of people getting trapped or hurt and all the ways things can go wrong. I definitely scared myself out of ever trying it. 45. I started with a video about changing a flat tire, and 4 hours later I was watching a documentary about the mating habits of deep-sea anglerfish. 46. The Mandela Effect. I went so deep into it that I ended up looking at photos of people standing in front of basically nothing at Ellis Island. 47. I spent hours and hours on acid looking into who flipped a house I used to own. The work they claimed they did, and the amount of time they did it, didn't match the house they actually lived in. By the end, I convinced myself it was a front for Russian money, because nothing I found made sense. 48. I'm a totally normal person, but I spent like 2 or 3 years following incels and femcels on Reddit. I saw it as a real issue for younger people, and wanted to understand it better. I was a teacher back then, and felt like knowing about this stuff helped me do my job. 49. My wife started watching videos of a guy just cleaning cow hooves. 50. Flat Earth. I was so shocked people believed it that I spent days digging into all the different ideas they had about it when I was younger. That's all for now. Don't forget to subscribe so I can keep bringing you more of these stories. Thanks for sticking around till the end. See you next time, and take care.